Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the EEARSS podcast produced by Terrier TV here at Titusville High School. I am Frank. That is Bill. We wish that was Cindy, but Cindy's got some things going on, and we love and miss her. Bill, how's it going, buddy?
Yes, sir. It's going well. We are almost to the end of the first quarter of the school year. Almost 9 weeks done.
I don't understand time.
It's me either.
Like I was jokingly telling you, I had one of the students that I coach football.
Right.
I gave him the Einstein's theory of relativity, and I said, "Hey, I want you to come present before practice tomorrow on what this means and how it pertains to football."
Right.
Which it doesn't really mean. I guess everything pertains to football sometime, just like anything else pertains to anything if you really dig into it.
Sure.
Kind of
life kind of thing.
Yeah. It's just time is just as confusing as that it can be sometimes, I reckon. How that goes back to Einstein, I have no idea, but I'm sure he has something to do with time.
I don't know.
Speed of light and time.
Speed of light. Speed of light. And as you get closer to the speed of light, time slows down, I think.
Warps or something. Some of the black hole too. I bet you our guest knows this answer to this.
Maybe so.
She knows a lot of amazing things. You ready to jump into this?
Yeah, let's do it.
So today on the podcast, we are joined by Dr. Helen Sung. How are you doing, Helen?
I am doing so great. Thank you for having me here. I am extremely excited for this.
Well, whether or not you realize this or not, you and many of your colleagues, and including Miss Marisa, who we'll talk about in a minute, I've admired you guys from a distance for a long time. Your work ethic, just the drive you guys have. I think I was describing you to Bill earlier as a killer. I'm like, she's a killer. Like gets it done.
Cold killer.
Just gets it done. Just doing stuff and just getting after it. I mean, that's what from me watching from a distance, I was like, they just work so flippin' hard and dig all the time. And that's it. I admire that. You know what I mean? Because I try to do the same, and it's nice to see those kind of things.
Thank you so much. You should see me right now. I have like a smile just beating ear to ear, just being like, I'm filled with the warm fuzzies right now.
I warned you about the warm fuzzies. I warned you about them. So Helen, tell us a little bit about you, where you're working now, kind of how you got there, and we'll dig into maybe the early stuff in a little bit.
Absolutely. Okay, so hello everyone, or I should say aloha. My name is Dr. Helen Sung. I just recently finished my PhD in zoology at the University of Hawai at Mānoa. My dissertation research was looking at hybridization between two species of crocodiles in Central America, the American crocodile and the Morelet crocodile, and looking to see how hybridization contributes to the adaptive potential and evolution of these species. So adaptive potential just means how hybridization or genetic diversity between the two allows for them to adapt to rapidly changing environments at a rate or at a given way that is expedited by this hybridization, I would have to say. So I could kind of go into that a little bit more detail later. But basically, I've been working with the Crocodile Research Coalition, or Dr. Maria. Oh my God, I can't say her name right now. I'm like tongue twisted. I'm so sorry, Marisa, if you listen to this. Oh my God. But so Dr. Marisa Tellez and I were working together since 2012. And that's where I got my start with crocodilians when I was an undergraduate at UCLA. So between then and now, it's been kind of a wild, wacky ride in terms of the diversity of experiences relating to research that I have had. Because the start was in crocodilian parasitology. And I actually went to grad school wanting to do physiology. After a series of, I would say, unfortunate events, led me to doing the specialization in genetics and pretty much population genomics or conservation genomics, which is like this growing field right now where as technology is increasing, especially like with sequencing and the rate of how we're able to generate data, now all of a sudden there's this boom in this research field that I just kind of stumbled into. And by stumbled, I'm like talking like someone Spartan kicked me off the edge into this field. But honestly, it's been great. There's been some bumps here and there in terms of my entire research experience, but ultimately, I'm glad that it happened because I have gained a wide diversity of experiences, both personal and research related. So I don't know if that was a decent, brief explanation of
That was a good one.
what
Yeah.
I've been doing.
Yeah, that was good.
It doesn't get a whole lot better than that, I think. That was pretty
Oh
special.
my God.
So
I'm sorry, I like flubbed
I-
Marisa's name. I don't know why.
I got a question. How did you end
Yeah.
up in Hawaii? I know you
Oh,
were working on
yeah.
your doctorate, but I mean, is there a really good program there, or is that, you know?
So this is kind of funny, but when I was applying or thinking about applying for graduate programs, because I took a few years off between graduating my undergraduate degree and getting into grad school, because ultimately I did know that I wanted to get a PhD. But originally I was planning on doing a master's somewhere first and then transitioning into a PhD afterwards. But like Marisa and also a few other mentors that I've had said, you have the research experiences, you know what you want, why not just go for a PhD and just try, seeing if you get in, and if you don't, then you can fall back to your original plan, which was getting a master's. And so with that, I didn't approach looking at PhD programs in what I think is the proper way, because ultimately I was thinking about, if I wanted to suffer for the next 6 to 8 years, I want to suffer in somewhere where I really enjoy living. So I was looking at places that I wanted to go, because I knew for my dissertation or my graduate work that I was going to be working with Marisa and her organization in crocodiles in Belize. So no matter where I went for grad school, it didn't necessarily matter to me in terms of like where I was situated, because the work would involve me flying to my field sites regardless. And the only thing that I really needed at home base was a laboratory, and that's everywhere. So that's kind of what drew me to looking at these different types of institutions. And University of Hawaii does have, it is an R1 institution, so it's a research-focused public university, and they do have their zoology program. But this is how the series of unfortunate events kind of unfolded, because what I did was look for anything related to herpetology, physiology, herpetology kind of put together at a research institution in a place that I wanted to go. So when I looked at the program, I saw it pop up. I saw my first advisor's name pop up, and she did ecophysiology, morphology, and functional evolution in herps. And so I reached out and emailed her, told her my interest, and did that with a few other people at different institutions. And Hawaii was one of the few places that I did get into off the bat for a PhD program. And I thought that it was better to kind of go to a place where my advisor wasn't particularly a herpetology person, but was more of a person who could give me a broader idea of the topic that I was interested in, because I would gain the herpetology knowledge just through my studies, but I wanted someone who could help me cultivate my ideas. So bing, bang, boom, it led me here. But ultimately, me and that person, that my primary advisor when I first got into this university, had what I would like to say interpersonal differences, to put it nicely. And so I ended up leaving her lab and joining my lab that I graduated from, who my advisor is, or was, I would have to say, just an incredible person and so incredibly kind and also so intelligent. And it was so funny because he's terrified of crocodiles, because he did some of his work back in Africa and he was the Nile crocs there, and didn't know anything related to crocodilians, but he is just this savant of genetics knowledge, especially population genetics. So he also helped me cultivate my ideas. And the best part about our relationship was when I kind of had this idea, because I did mix a little bit of physiology into my genetic studies because I was interested in salinity tolerance. as like a character trait that hybrids had versus the freshwater Morelets. And the study or the type of analysis is called a genome-wide association scan. And notoriously, everyone who has done this type of analyses tell me what you're going to do is impossible. Like, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. And my advisor even said, he was just like, it's probably not going to work. But if it does, then it's cool. And so I just needed to hear that and was like, all right, the hardest part, yeah, let's just jump into the deep end of genomics, even though I have zero idea and zero knowledge of what I am doing, because the most genetics experiences that I've ever had coming in was a singular class in my undergrad during the summer that I got a C- in. So why not?
So you're one of those that you don't really look before you leap, do you?
No, I just kind of an all or none kind of person.
Okay.
And I would like to think that it has benefited me throughout my life, but also has gotten me into trouble in a lot of other instances. But on the most part, I'm still here, and I got my doctorate. So
there you go.
Worked.
Yeah. Well, yeah. As they say, the proof is in the pudding.
What flavor is the pudding, though?
Well, obviously, it's whatever her degree is in.
The flavor of pudding is trauma.
Dear Lord.
Oh, goodness.
That's hilarious. So, Helen, tell me a little bit about young you and how you ended up wanting to go to school and your maybe early interactions with wildlife. What led you to pursuing all this?
Yeah. So I feel like it's really cliche, but in many essence of people who do enter into this field, it starts off at a very young age. So before I even knew what a zoologist was, I wanted to be a zoologist because I knew that I wanted to work with animals, but I wasn't wanting to do medicine. So I remember when people would be like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would be like, oh, I want to work with animals. And they'd be like, oh, a veterinarian. I was like, no, I want to be a zoologist. And no one really knew what that was. But the primary inspiration was probably growing up watching things like documentaries and series on Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, Nat Geo. Obviously, big person who influenced my career trajectory in terms of what I wanted was Steve Irwin, watching The Crocodile Hunter growing up. And I remember sitting in front of the TV and being, that is what I'm going to be. I am going to be that person in the future. And so that kind of led me along this path where like that was the hyperfixation that stuck in my childhood, and everything kind of built towards that in terms of momentum. There were certain parts in college where I thought maybe I could do medicine, maybe I could do veterinary medicine. So I did actually become one of the executive members of the Pre-Veterinary Society at UCLA and set up an internship program with the Belize Wildlife and Referral Clinic because I thought I wanted to do a DVM PhD. I barely got one doctorate. Thinking I could get two is pretty funny to me now.
So now, wait a minute. Now, when you were doing this, what did your parents think of all this?
Oh, they're really supportive now. They're very proud of what I've become. But at the time,
they were a little worried about you, weren't they?
They were worried, yes, because even as a child, when I told them that I wanted to work with animals, they were thinking dogs, cats,
right.
And I was like, snakes, crocodiles, apex predators. And they just didn't know what to do with that. And I love them for everything that they provided me and gave me and their support, but they are very, so they're immigrant parents that are from Korea. And in Korea, the culture behind, I guess, like animals in conservation isn't as persistent or prevalent. So they kind of wanted to do the standard typical, oh, she's going to be a doctor. She's going to be a lawyer. She's going to blah, blah, blah. And I was like, zoologist. I'm going to be a doctor, but I'm not going to be that kind of doctor. And they thought it was a phase. I think pretty much it thought it was a phase, but
I'm pretty
I
sure
would
it's
come home.
it's a phase with
Oh, yeah.
Frank too. Yeah, he'll grow out of it any day now.
Yep, the eternal phase. But I would come home with like lizards. I like begged them for a snake, and they just said no on all regards. And then in college, I got my own snake, haha, and chased my mom around the house with it.
Oh
But
no!
I was like, look, she's beautiful. And I actually trapped my mom into a corner and like petted her with the snake. And she's just screaming silently. But eventually she learned to appreciate them. And they actually go hiking quite often.
They
And
learn
they'll
to
send me
learn to
videos.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think
I'm
the
dying
word
over
you're
here.
looking for is surrender.
I'm literally dying over here.
Oh goodness!
Learn to appreciate it. Oh Lord. Okay, I'm sorry. Please continue.
Okay.
That rocked my
Oh,
world.
yeah, no.
Good Lord.
But so the basic gist is, yes, I wanted to be a zoologist since I was little, and
Oh.
kind of chiseled my way through this path because in the very beginning, there wasn't much support for what I wanted to do, mainly because there was just an ignorance behind what it really was and why I was driven for this. But then the thing that like really emphasized what or kind of molded this path and kind of solidified it was when I was in college. I got my undergraduate degree in ecology, behavior, and evolution at UCLA with a minor in conservation biology. And those within my program or my major was forced to do this field biology quarter where you have the entire quarter to do a research intensive in-field project. And mine was in field herpetology. And that kind of took me all throughout California doing various research projects. And I loved it. When I went into the field, it just ignited something in me. And then the first time I saw a crocodile in the wild, it just clicked in place. It really did. And because I did the veterinary things prior and worked with a bunch of wildlife, and it wasn't necessarily working with the wildlife in just a in-person setting, like a controlled setting that like really stuck for me. It was the fact that I could see them in their natural environment, get to experience the world through their perspective in the sense of like what they're doing. How can I help in terms of preserving / witnessing and sharing what I think was such a monumental experience for Earth and the rest of time, especially for the next generation of scientists or the next generation who just should experience something similar in the sense of viewing wildlife, viewing ecosystems, viewing these natural systems where it's inspiring, beautiful, and makes you feel like you're not the center of this world. Humans are not the center of this planet. Humans are just a little beep beep boop in terms of Earth's giant evolutionary like scheme, where we are kind of, in the sense, destroying what billions of years have taken to create, you know, in terms of conservation, in terms of these ecosystems and environments. And that stuck with me. But I did, because I was so lucky in terms of finding Marisa my freshman year of college, and she was the first person that like brought me into research. But me and her, I'm sure that you know, we are the same person. We are pretty much, we just clicked immediately. And I was like, wow, I love you. And just being in the field and getting to do what I've always imagined what I was going to do. And originally, I was actually not thinking about pursuing crocodilians. I just wanted to get research experience and just loved apex predators and happened to love herpetology and just stumbled into this lab that worked with crocodilians. And then after college, I was like, okay, even though I love it, I need to taste what else is out there. I need to figure out what I actually want to do for grad school. And so I worked with herps in general at University of Florida with the Croc Docs as their intern for a little while. So I got to experience Florida herps, and then also work with the alligators over there, and they're so cute. They're like little swamp puppies, and I love them. But then I also got to go to Costa Rica working with pterosaurs, so the spiny-tailed iguanas. I worked with bats in Indiana for a little while, and hellbenders in Indiana for a little while. And I think it was when I was working with the bat project, I came to this epiphany being like, oh my God, it's so cute and it's so small and it wants to kill me, but it can't because it's so small. I love crocodiles. I love working with things that could actually kill me. So take that as you will.
No, that's pretty special. Okay, so I got a question for you.
Yeah.
It's something I've had this conversation with Marisa, and I try to have this conversation with my interns. Can you walk us through? This is an unfortunate world we live in, where it's unusual, right? People see it as unusual for a young woman to want to get into the world of wildlife, especially apex predators. Ironically, every intern in my group are young women who are working toward that, and I usually send them to go talk to Marisa about this stuff because these are not conversations I can have with them. Talk a little bit about what it's like being a young woman, making your way through this degree, the interesting things, the interesting discussions people have. I still hear people have these things with Marisa all the time, and I'm like, you guys don't understand. Excuse my language, but Marissa's a badass. She's got it covered. You know, I mean, she's fine. Leave her alone. You know, I don't understand why there's this idea out there that women can't work with apex predators. It rubs my fur the wrong direction. Can you go into a little bit about maybe some advice you would give to these young ladies who are working their way through their undergraduate degree and want to one day be sitting where you're at right now?
Absolutely. This is something that I also equally strongly advocate for young women as well, because to be completely honest, being a woman in this field was really hard. And it, in some senses, still is, because at least when I was younger, everyone saw it as, it's a phase, it's just talk, she won't be able to do it. And it was, and I joke around with Marisa about this, where spite is a really strong motivating factor, and also for persistence and resilience, because I kind of came this with the stubbornness of, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I'm not going to prove you wrong by just speaking, prove you wrong through my actions, through results, through visible persistence, through visible, meaningful work. And that's the thing, is that I experienced a lot of sexism, like even as an undergraduate. I was in a class this one day, and I was taking this honors class in vertebrate biology. And I remember this professor, I told them that I wanted to do this research, I wanted to work with crocodilians. And his response to me was, are you sure? Are you sure you don't want to work with something cute? And I kind of was a little bit taken aback, because, you know, why are you asking me this when we were going around essentially across the class being like, oh, what is this topic that you want to work with? And he never said that to any of the
why discourage someone? Why discourage someone?
Yeah. And so that was just one example, but then also being in the field, and especially if you're doing field work with, like, in the middle of nowhere, and you have to be conscientious about the people around you, not necessarily the people that you're working with, but just in general in these public spaces where men will ogle at you, men will catcall you, men will be saying all these derogatory things when you're trying to do science for the betterment of the conservation of these species, and ultimately the people who are reliant on these species in a functioning ecosystem. But it doesn't come across. Instead, you're just a woman. You're just a person who is there for the entertainment or the whatever for men. And that kind of mentality is still very pervasive in not just science, but just like in general, like being out in the world and like having this kind of not only having to worry about getting good results, doing good science, doing good research, but also in some sense having to combat this pervasive like mentality of or let me kind of rephrase this, is the struggle I feel that is most present for women in STEM, especially working in conservation, especially working with apex predators, is that you can't just be the bare minimum. You can't even just be good. You have to be great. You have to be great to the point where your lead is so much higher than what is expected from your peers who are men, because you already have this viewpoint set upon you that you can't do it. And that is something that we have to like work through every day, bit by bit. And ultimately, it hurt me a little bit more when I was younger, but eventually as I was starting to grow as a scientist, as I was starting to grow in this field, you have to build that resilience. And I kind of kick back and I just say, you know, if you want to do the macho man, like prove me wrong situation, go ahead. But I'm just going to continue on my own path and use my results to show that I am capable, because that's all I can really do. Because if I yell back, if I push back, if I whatever, then I'm just a woman who is just yelling and trying to make a fit about whatever, when that's not going to help the stereotype and help the mentality that's already placed upon me. So in turn, like that kind of aspect, I need to just push forward and not necessarily ignore, because you have to be aware, but you have to take it into account. But on the other hand of that, and what I do feel is so incredibly valuable, is having a support system that is encouraging your growth, that is encouraging your career and your ability, and being able to rely upon. And usually that support system are women also who have equally faced all of this and know that it's hard and will do everything in their power to help you move forward and give you the help and the resistance and everything you need. Because ultimately, because we face these hardships, because we face all of this criticism, we're stronger for it. Like, we have developed this resilience and this resistance to be able to power through and persevere. And that's kind of how I felt when I first approached my project, my dissertation, is the people who are telling me that I couldn't do it, most of them were men. Most of them were like, it's going to be too hard. Wah, wah. Like, are you sure? And because I already had faced all of this like negativity, like prior to getting to that point, my instinctual reaction was, yeah, let me prove you wrong. Let me show you that I can do it, because that's all I've ever heard. So, you know what? Let's go. And if I fail catastrophically, I will fail so catastrophically that everyone will also know, and I will embrace it and use that to carve out a new pathway that will be magnificent, I would have to say. And sure enough, as I was going through, there were setbacks, but every time I felt like, oh my God, I can't do it, I would like cry and call Marisa, and Marisa was just like, if I can do it, you can do it. So shut up and keep on going. And I was like, okay, I will. Tap, 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 and like continue working. And as a grad student, I would also take on student undergrads. I was mentoring 2 undergrads who were both women, people of color, and helping them move along. So I was paying it forward just as people paid it forward to me. And the best thing I could say is be resilient, work hard, persevere, show them that they're wrong. Don't tell them, show them. And if you need to fall back on someone, fall back on your support system, because we will help you. You're not alone. And I think that's the thing, is if I was alone, maybe I would have faltered, maybe I would have fallen. But as women, we help each other through these rough times and through our support system, support network. And I think that's also really beautiful. It's the girls going to the bathroom together mentality of, you know, we stick together. And in addition to that, we bolster each other up. And I think that's really important. I don't know if that just went on a tangent or if I answered your question.
No, you
but,
did. You did.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's you surely did. Okay, so I got one last question here for you.
Yeah.
You were talking a little bit about your PhD and the research you were doing. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. Okay. So pretty much when I first started my dissertation, I was thinking about questions of what I wanted to do. And it actually started because I saw what I described as these wonky looking crocodiles in Belize while we're doing some of our crocodilian parasitology research, because we have Morelets and American crocodiles in the same area. And they do look really similar, but you can still kind of tell them apart. There's certain morphological differences between the two. And I would see these wonky looking crocodiles and be like, what is that? And then kind of research and look into it. And sure enough, there's been reports of hybridization between the two. And that's what took off in terms of my general idea. And then when I was thinking about hybridization or seeing more and more research come out about hybridization, people were generally saying that it was a conservation issue. And so people see these crocodiles, see that hybridization was an issue, and they go, it's a problem, and walk away. But then I was coming at it of why? Why is it a problem? Why is it even happening? What is going on with it? So when I started my dissertation, it was, what are the consequences of hybridization, and is it actually a conservation issue? And if it is, what can we do to mediate that? What can we do to essentially help the preservation of the pure species, while also seeing what can we do about the hybrids, because everyone says that the hybrids were running rampant. They were everywhere. There's so many hybrids now. And so I'm coming at it as why? Why are there so many? And why are they doing great? So how I kind of approached my dissertation is I looked at hybridization going on in Belize, looking at their evolutionary history between the two separate species and the hybrids together. And what I started noticing too are the hybrids were mostly found in areas where there's a lot more human disturbances, a lot of like built development areas around the coast. And so when looking into it, they're also in these areas that are more like saline, they're more high in salinity. And we know that Morelets are freshwater species, even though they could handle brackish water. And American crocodiles are one of the two estuarine specialists. And so hybrids were kind of smack dab in the center, doing great, but they're also a lot bigger, or they're kind of had different characteristics about them. And so I was looking specifically for genes associated or genetic markers associated with salinity tolerance in hybrids and how that compares to the two species. And that was the really hard chapter. And I am still completely dumbfounded in the sense that it worked. It literally worked. And I found a marker that was associated with environmental salinity and had a bunch of described, like, at least with humans, a bunch of different responses in terms of associations with osmoregulatory function and how mutations in this gene will actually cause like renal failure or like salt uptake, like diseases and whatever. And so looking into that further in terms of what is essentially the consequences of having salinity, like higher salinity tolerance, and the consequences is nothing. They've been doing great. They've been hybridizing since the dawn of time. They're just reacting in the way that they've always reacted, because this is the crazy thing that I do love about crocodilians is in terms of when you look at their evolutionary history, their genome is super conserved. They haven't changed that much genetically and also physically, like if you look at them, since they emerged. And they're just nature's beautiful, perfect little predators. They're these wonderful murder sausages that just, it worked and it stuck. But the problem is that now humans are changing their environment in a pace where they can't rapidly adapt to the situation because their mutation rates aren't as high as all of these other species. So how do you get the genetic diversity incorporated to change for selection to act upon for them to adapt if they aren't mutating as quick? And the solution, or evolution's essential solution, was hybridization, because these two species, genetic diversity, intertwine, and then you have a new mosaic, a new mix of like pools of genetic diversity that can allow them to rapidly adapt. And because salinity tolerance is one of the major barriers delineating between the boundaries between the two species, all of a sudden these hybrids that have greater salinity tolerance, they're big, they can grow fast, they can do all of these things. They get this salinity tolerance, they get this like these new genotypes or phenotypes, move around, do their thing, find a place, situate, and evolve again. So in Belize, one of the things that I found that was really, really cool is that there's actually two separate, distinct populations of the American crocodile, one that's on the mainland and one that's along the Keys. And it's not to the level that they're different species per se, but I would almost argue that it could be like considered subspecies, whatever. But the thing that was driving these differences, that might have driven these differences in this population, is the hybridization that happened many, many, many years ago, like thousands and thousands of years ago. So it's roughly like 300,000 years ago. And so what we're seeing is speciation in action. We're seeing the start of what is called an incipient hybrid speciation event, which is hybridization allows them to come together, create these new genotypes and phenotypes that evolution and selection essentially drove into almost like the ongoing process of a new species. And there's a lot of cases of this that's been seen in smaller vertebrates, especially like African cichlids in Lake Victoria is a good example where hybrid speciation allowed for this massive radiation in terms of different morphologies, different behaviors, different species. Another good example are heliconius butterflies is like the typical one, but we've never seen this before in large vertebrates, especially large long-lived vertebrates. So in a sense, I'm like, haha, we see it in crocodiles. It is happening. I found it. Y'all can suck it. You told me I can do it. I did it.
Well, at least you're humble.
Helen, that is incredible.
Thank
That is
you.
pretty cool.
Yeah, now you know what what the next thing's gonna be, right? You're gonna need to look at every crocodilian species and find the same thing.
Honestly, I think that is probably happening because talking to people, especially at the CSG meetings, with just any kind of species with crocodilists in general, I'm like, if there's two in a single area, two species in a single area, I almost guarantee that they're hybridizing. Because what's great with all of this recent advancements in technology is we're discovering that hybridization is pervasive across nature, across like literally every living organism, even humans. And things like if your hair color is red, if you have a red beard or red hair color, that's actually a gene that came from Neanderthals. Ooh-hoo-hoo. And so like we know that hybridization is something that has contributed towards adaptation and towards evolution for everything. And it would be so sick. It would be so cool if I could go to these different areas and do something similar with other crocodile species because I love them.
I think it's a good idea.
There you go. Yeah.
Helen, thank you so much for joining us and chatting with us. This has been a great conversation. We're gonna have to have you back on again and get deeper into this.
Yeah, and next time
Absolutely.
try to be a little excited, okay?
Oh, I feel like I was rambling so much, but thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
You did a great job.
Yes,
And
yes.
you'll enjoy this when it comes out. Trust me. Thank you very much,
you.
Helen, and we look forward to chatting with you again. We'll set this up and chat with you again, maybe at the beginning of next year.
Absolutely. Thank you for
All right.
having me.
Yep, sure thing, Helen. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, legit a killer.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yep.
my goodness.
Yep, she's
Wind her up and let her go.
just a brilliant
Mhm.
brilliant woman.
Oh yeah. Half of what she said, I don't think I understood.
No, I kept track of probably 3/4 of it.
And,
Yeah, I kept
it's-
track of the crocodilian part.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. And she was very, very excited about it.
She's
And
into it, man.
yes,
That's her
yes.
jam. And
And
like I said,
that's-
I've watched her and her colleagues, Miriam, who we'll have on next week, and Marisa, obviously we've had on a few times. I've watched them. You know, I've worked with Marisa, but I've watched all three of them work just from a distance. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
and just how they interact with people and amazing. I mean,
That's cool.
They're hammers.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're hammers and they're getting it done, and not just getting it done, but high level getting it done,
Right.
which is, you can't ask for a whole lot more than that.
That's cool.
But all right, you ready to end this thing?
Yep, let's go ahead and do it.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in to the EEARSS podcast produced by Terrier TV here at Titusville High School. I am Frank. That was Bill. We very much enjoyed you guys tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about EEARSS and the research we're doing, you can go over to EEARSS.org, EEARSS, or alligatorrobb.com. Rob has 2 B's. It's my last name. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we very much look forward to talking to you next week. Bye-bye.